Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of G Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. And today is May 8th, Friday, May 8th, 2020. And the reason I know that is because I heard from Pierre from Heat Seeker Bus today, and he got up to 4 inches of snow outside, and it was snowing again at noontime when he shot a video. So hop over to his channel and check it out. They get snow in May out there in Ontario, Canada. So I guess their winter's not over. Well, I got my doors on, my cabinets over here, and they turned out pretty darn good, if I say so myself. So anyway, the problem with the light up there, well, the door opens that far, and then it hits right at the top. It hits at the fixture, not on the light bulb itself. So as you can see, that works just fine. So I can still get into the cabinet, get the stuff I want, and I threw some stuff in here real quick to get it off the floor so I wouldn't trip over it, because somebody noticed I had a band-aid on my thumb yesterday, and they thought I cut myself on the saw. No, but I was hauling this cabinet in here to hang it. One of the corners caught on the screen door right there and twisted me around, and I banged my thumb on the edge of the door frame over here, and I just took a chunk of skin off the end of the knuckle there. So I didn't want to get any infection, so I put some Neosporin and a little bit of Band-Aid on there, which is pretty much worn off from working all day today. But I'll be going in the shower, and then I'll put a fresh Band-Aid on. So I didn't want bugs to get in, so I took some of my wood glue and I just coated that hole. I do have more screen I can replace this with, but no need to replace it if the only thing I have is that one little mess up on there. The bugs can't get through it, so that's all I care about. So when this thing wears out, probably at the end of the summer from the heat and all of that, then I'll take the door off and I'll rescreen it. In the meantime, loving my cabinets. As you can see, I got some of my towels in here. Check them out. They do fit perfectly. And when I go to Home Depot, I'll pick up some knobs and I'll put knobs on these things so I don't have to grab them from underneath like I just did. I thought I had some, but things are in such disarray. I couldn't find them, but I'll find them right after I buy another set. All right, so let's move on outside. Well, let me grab my list so I don't forget anything. Okay, let's see. Yeah, the cabinets. I forgot yesterday. I told you I was going to show you how I made those holes in the cabinets for the shelves, and how you get them all nice and straight and the right distance apart and all that stuff. So we're going to head up here to where my little work area was from yesterday, and I'll show you. And I'm going to show you some other neat tips and tricks, because one of my other subscribers is also building his cabin, or putting his cabin together right now. And he's going to need cabinets down the line, so he wanted a few tips and hints about that. All right, so this is the tool that drills those holes. And you can see it's got 2 drill bits in it. And then it's got a little spring tab right there. So you can adjust this slide to the distance that you want on the door or on the panel. Okay, how far you want it from the edge of the panel inward, and that's the setting that I had. And this can be taken out and reversed to the other side, because you only have one guide pin on there. So when you're doing this side, the guide pin will be in the right place, but when you're doing this side, you'd have to start from the other end. You don't want to do that. You always want to start from the same end at the same point and work your way up. So you hook this part into a drill. I used a cordless drill. You don't have to use a cordless. You could use an electric drill. But when this turns, let me get it in place here. You see both drill bits turn. Okay, so you would set it, align it with the bottom of your door, but I set mine up higher, so I used a spacer board, And I put it up against the spacer board, made sure this was against there, and then you start the drill motor and press down. See how that goes? And it drills 2 holes. Then you move this pin into the top hole and do it again. Move it into the top hole, do it again for as many times as you want up the cabinet. Then you go down, start from the other side. You'd have to take this piece out and reverse it and do the same thing up the other side. I do, because I had 3 panels, 2 side panels and 1 center panel, I do all of the ones I can do with it set like this first. Then I reverse the guide, I set it up for the other way, and I do all the other sides. Pretty cool. Anyway, that's one of the tools I wanted to show you. Now these boards, while I'm at it, you're looking at these boards that are here, and each one has a screw sticking through at each corner. No, they're not screwed down to the table. They're just laying here. And what are those for? Well, when you're painting cabinet doors, you paint one side, and then you got to flip them over and paint the other side. Well, you don't want the side that you painted getting all scratched up on the table or whatever. So you make these little panels like this, and then you can lay, let's see if I got one here. You can lay a panel like this right on top of the nails, and all it's going to do is the little points are going to leave a little tiny dot on the inside of the door that you'll never even see. You cannot see it. And so I can paint this door, and it's up off the table. It won't stick to the table from the paint that runs down or anything like that. So that's another neat little tip for when you're building cabinets. You see I got 4 of them here because I had 4 doors. So I just made 4 of them up with 4 pieces of scrap wood. And hey, Pierre, these were the boards that you had your generator sitting on when you were out here. They came in handy. Thank you. Anyway, some other tools you should have when you're building cabinets. Nailers. Okay. These flies are terrible. This nailer is an angle type nailer, and it's made by Porter Cable. This is a really expensive one. And I've got 2-inch nails in there, and they're finish nails. And all I do is hook this up to my air compressor. You press down, that activates it, and then you squeeze the trigger, bang, and you shoot a nail in. So as you're putting the cabinets together, you put your glue on them, you get them squared into place, and then you shoot a nail in there to hold them together. That's for paint grade cabinets. And how do you keep them square? Well, they got these little units like this. Okay, these are to keep things square. And they come with these clamps. And these clamps have places right in the unit where they rest right in place. So you can put these things on the corners of your cabinets and keep them nice and square. I have a bunch of these around, and I just needed 2 for what I was doing on this one. But that's another thing, is squaring things up. All right, now, another thing. Not everybody has a table saw. And you need a table saw when you're working on cabinets. So I was telling one of my subs that in the comment section that when back in 1987 there was a recession, and my construction company closed down. I got rid of the 15 guys working for me, and then things got worse, and the economy was really bad. So I had to start selling tools off in order to make ends meet. Well, when I was doing that, I ran out of all my tools. I didn't have table saws or anything like that. So what I did have was a cheap skill saw. Okay, a skill saw for making cabinets is not very good because you can't really get nice, perfect, accurate cuts. So I come up with this idea, and I'm going to show you right here basically what I did. Okay, I built a wooden table with some cheap OSB like this, and I put it on 4 legs, and I made a good 4 foot by 4 foot unit for it to set on. Then I took my table saw on my skill saw, and I drilled a hole here and a hole here, dead center in the plate on this. And then I countersunk 2 carriage bolts. Those of you who don't know what a carriage bolt is, look it up on the internet. I sunk them through the table, going to the bottom, and then I put them up underneath these. I put a lock nut on there. A nylock nut. It's got a nylon thing in it so that it won't vibrate loose on both ends, and I held this up underneath. Now, you can adjust the depth of your cut on these things using this lever right here. So I just lifted this up and made it loose so I could take the blade all the way down when I fastened it up under the table, and then I bolted it into place. Then I fired it up and I raised the blade up through the wood so that the blade was sticking out through my wood here. All right, so then I took a piece of 1x3 and made a T. So the T set against the square edge of the front of the table and went across the table that way. So I could adjust my gate wherever I wanted it to be, and then I would just shoot a screw right through the T into the plywood table so that it held it in place while I ripped a piece of wood to the proper dimension. And I can move that gate back and forth and do whatever I wanted with it. So that was my table saw probably for about 6 months until my profits came in and I could afford to start buying tools again. And then I went out and bought that table saw. I got a really nice one. Now, fortunately, the one job that I started doing with this little homemade table saw was garage cabinets. So it wasn't critical to be perfectly beautiful on everything. They were just garage cabinets for storing things like a quarts of oil and things like that. So, and I did them all with MDF. I got a pretty nice job out of them, and then they were paint grade, so I painted them all up just like the ones I just did inside. But that was a neat thing. The only thing I had to spend money on was a good blade, because you don't want a cheap blade when you're working with cabinets. You want a good blade. So that's another trick down the line that you can use if you're going to be doing stuff like that. Now remember, that saw will vibrate when you're cutting, so you want to make sure that you use nylock nuts when you lock that into place and fasten it up underneath the table, because if you don't, the nuts will come loose and then you'll have a dangerous situation. So that's like I said in the reply that I put on there, I had a boss years ago, and his favorite saying was, work with what you've got, not with what you wish you had. That's American ingenuity. That helped us win the war. And he used to always tell me that, and it stuck in my head. So that's what I do. I work with what I've got, not with what I wish I had. And some things I've got that I filled in on my wish list. All right, so wanted to cover all of that stuff. There's other tools like random orbital sanders, HVLP sprayers, things like that. Also, one other nailer I had here. You can get these at Harbor Freight. This is a little pin nailer. This is nice for the little trim moldings and stuff. It shoots these little finished pins and makes things a lot easier. Then you need an air compressor to run it. So make sure you have the tools when you're going to do stuff like that. It makes it a lot easier. But if you don't, work with what you've got, not with what you wish you had. All right. So we're running a little bit long here. I'm going to quickly go down, and I'll show you that I did transfer water while I was doing all this today. And I brought 600 gallons down to the garden totes down there. I emptied all the yellow pails. Those are all pumped into the totes. So I've got water down there that I can use to keep the garden going until it's time to refill. I still have about 1,000 gallons up at my water tank for myself. and that'll last me a while, so I'll get planning on that, and we'll go from there. I also, while I was down there transferring water, I went inside and I planted some okra. And okra will grow into plants like 6 foot tall. So you want to put those in the right place so that they don't shade other plants. But they're also susceptible to wind. So I had to find a wind-free area to put my okra in so that I would have okra wind-free. Okay. I thought somebody would catch on to that. Okra wind-free. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go in and have a handful of sneeze nuts and a cold beer. What, you don't know what sneeze nuts are? Cashews. All right. That's it, everybody. G-Bear remind you, give me a thumbs up down there. Don't forget to like my videos. And don't forget to subscribe. It's free. It's always free. G-Bear signing off.